going on, guys? The Iron Can here, back on Dragon Ball The Breakers Season 2 video. And today's video, we got a little bit of a discussion topic. And to start off, I'm wearing this black tank top to kind of spice things up a little bit. So today's topic of discussion is whether or not the game is Raider-sided or if the game is Survivor-sided. So just to kind of show you guys your thoughts, what do you think the game is, Raider side or Survivor side? You guys actually really impressed me. So I did a poll on my channel here, basically asking you guys, telling you about this video that I wanted to do. Gave it a couple days just to kind of cook and see what you guys ultimately decided. And to my surprise, everybody actually voted Survivor sided. That's because typically when it comes to breakers or asymmetrical games in general, I think players or communities tend to kind of favor the survivors more so than the raiders and the killers, just because the raiders slash killers are normally considered OP or very, very strong. But I feel like a lot of that comes down to lack of knowledge of the game, or just getting a bad mix of teammates and whatnot. So this game is heavily team based. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the comments here. Actually, you know what? We'll look at the comments later. I'm gonna give my own thoughts first, and then we're gonna go through the comments and kind of end the discussion with that. So I kind of have a list written down here. So basically, it's gonna be what is so strong about Raiders, what is so weak about Raiders, what is so strong about Survivors, and what is so weak about Survivors. And we're gonna pretty much just jump back and forth as we do the discussion. And as I'm talking, I might just throw up some gameplay here as we're kind of talking, and then I might cut back to certain things that I want to talk about as we go ahead and continue. So I'm gonna go pause and be right back. All right, so we got some gameplay up for those people with low attention spans. We got something up to keep you distracted while we go ahead and continue this discussion. So camera, we good? Okay, sorry, I was fidgeting for a second there. So what is so strong about Raiders? So first off, they're not safe to fight unless you're same level or higher. This is a very basic concept, but a lot of people tend to forget about this, or if they get level 4s, they think they're Superman. They can just charge right at the Raider, but this is not the case. When you're attacking the Raider, you kind of, even if you're the same level or higher, you can really only get like 1v1 in a 1v1 scenario. If you're the same level or higher, you could only probably land like one melee combo or two, and then you're just gonna have to escape, right? And you need to escape, because if you deal damage and don't escape, well, you're just giving the Raider free evolution charge, and then that Raider could camp you. That Raider could do pretty much whatever he wants to do after that position, but you're basically putting him in an advantageous scenario. So when you are fighting a Raider, you can basically only do hit and run tactics. So other things that are strong are RNG can make them level up insanely fast. This is of course very apparent with characters like Cell, which I will cut to right now. If you guys don't know how Cell works, Cell is a character that can level up very quickly thanks to his passive life absorption, and this carries through by absorbing survivors. This carries through by absorbing civilians. He is the Raider in the game that can level up the fastest. That is his hallmark, trademark ability. That's what he does. So if Cell is the Raider that you're going up against and gets really good RNG, gets like 4 civilians that spawn right next to him, well, then you might be dealing with a very early level 3 and potentially a very early level 4. So you got to be very careful with that. So RNG on the Raider side, whether survivors spawn next to them, civilians spawn next to them, they can get an early advantage, which definitely makes them very strong. There's also basically 0 defense against camping besides the Super Time Machine and Dragon Ball pressure. So what I mean by this, so say if a Raider downs somebody, they could legit just sit on that body until they die, and there's not much you can really do as a team. You could of course try to jump the Raider, but depending on how early the game is, depending on how late the game is, this might not be a feasible thing to do. And it depends if you have a team. If you don't have a team, you're not going to be able to coordinate an attack against the Raider. You could like spam like let's fight, but the odds of people actually fighting with you is pretty low. So that's why I say Dragon Ball pressure and sitting down keys and getting the Super Time Machine set up is pretty much the only way to counter camping, unfortunately. And if a Raider is camping an area, Dragon Ball pressure is definitely the counter to that, just because if you summon a level 4, then the Raider has something else to focus on. That's the thing, guys. Like, say if the Super Time Machine is up, the Raider is just going to focus the Super Time Machine. How you distract the Raider in that case? well, you summon Shenron or you fight. So the Raider has multiple things to deal with. When you give the Raider multiple things to juggle, that's where they suffer. So, and that's also what makes them so strong. In 1v1 scenarios, they will always win, or should always win, unless survivors use like really crazy combos and whatnot. So moving on here. Oops, I don't know why I got away from the gameplay. They can sometimes easily tunnel survivors, basically with moves like key sense or just like with their basic line of sight. So this is actually, again, very easy with characters like Cell, who has key detection very early at his second stage. Other characters like Boo, who can get around the map very fast with Il Bomber and can use key detection right afterwards, right? And even Cell himself can move around pretty fast using his freaking afterimage ability, which he could actually use to traverse. I feel like a lot of people use this just to dodge, but this is also a very good ability to use just to traverse the map straight up. So moving right along here, like I already mentioned, they dominate 1v1 scenarios, and they can vanish kick survivors on Super Time Machine. So this is actually secret tech. I'm actually gonna go ahead and pause here and show you guys what I'm talking about. And we'll be right back and showcase you guys, because I feel like a lot of people don't know about this tech. All right, I forgot that I actually can't do some practice mode because I would need 8 players to do it. So this is an example of it just to show you guys. I do it really quick in the video that I uploaded kind of recently. So basically the survivor was on the other end of the Super Time Machine here. You can do this while they're on it. I don't do it while he's on it, but see how he's on the opposite side of the Super Time Machine? Basically what I do is I just hold forward and hit circle and I kick. I vanish kick him. I miss, I end up missing, but like that's how it works. I hit him there. So that's a technique that you can use as a Raider when there's survivors on the Super Time Machine and you're kind of like chasing them around. That's what you could do to kind of counter that. So kind of going down the line as well where we left off, obviously Raiders can destroy areas of the map with their various area destruction skills that they get. I'm saying various skills, but basically they can destroy areas multiple times as they level up. This limits supplies for both the Raider and survivors, more so on the survivors. But yeah, it just limits escapes, and obviously it's a very, very strong ability. And they can also decrease the Super Time Machine startup by doing this. They can destroy Trunks' supplies. So if you guys didn't see a video in the past of mine, depending on where you are as the Raider, is normally where the supplies actually spawn. So if you destroy, I know I'm actually going to show you the example because I literally have a video of me doing this. I'll be right back and show you guys the example. All right, so here's the example. In this video, you can see the supplies from Trunks spawning, and I go ahead and destroy the supplies by destroying the area that they land in. That's because I was in the area. Because I was in C, the supplies land in C. Typically, that's how the supplies work, I believe. Wherever the Raider is where they actually spawn. So you can play this to your advantage depending on how the game is going. I use it to my advantage and basically cuck the remaining survivors here of their supplies. You see my reaction there, kind of like removing all hope of the survivors actually winning that, doing so. So it can be very, very damning. So what else can they do? They can camp with ease. Yeah, there's basically no camping, counter to camping. 8 Vegeta can be nearly impossible to kill. If you guys didn't see my tier list video already, you know that I think 8 Vegeta belongs in a tier of his own. He is a Raider that is not only strong, but is also nearly impossible to kill. Like if 8 Vegeta has a full bar of health, even when a full group of survivors, it is pretty much slim to none of you killing a good 8 Vegeta. Like the only time you'll kill an 8 Vegeta in the 8 form is if they just play careless, honestly, in my opinion. But yeah, his stomp stuns you for 10 years. You pretty much just get hit by it and you just fly in the sky, and you basically can't move again until you land, but it sends you flying so high you can't really do anything else afterwards. He could turn around way too fast. I mean, the whole thing about 8 Vegeta is the fact that you have to attack his tail. His tail is literally the only weak spot of this Raider. You can't attack him from the front. You have to attack him by his tail. And if you don't, then you basically will never be able to kill him. And the fact that he can move around really fast and basically change directions depending on where you are, so the tail never faces you, I think is kind of crazy. Nappa makes it very easy to camp with Cybermen. Nappa has this ability where he can plant Cybermen. And when you do this, typically, I think the intended use was to plant Cybermen in front of crates and caves, But what some players end up doing is planting multiple Cybermen on a down survivor, allowing Nappa to be alerted as soon as teammates try to be a good teammate and revive their fellow survivor. So Frieza. Frieza has insane passives. All his passives are extraordinarily stacked. All of them are important. All of them are good. He gets free evolution change charge by taking damage, by killing the Namekians without Dragon Balls, by a summon going off, and if he gets a summon, he can wish for immortality. So all of his passives are insanely good, where not exactly the case for the other Raiders, but that just makes Frieza particularly very, very strong. He is actually one of the best Raiders at camping as well, because of his ability to call Zoroark and Dodoria. He can just call one of them and have them sit on the body, sit on an escape time machine beacon, and basically there's no real counterplay for survivors besides like using Gallic Gun or a super attack to get rid of his lackeys, right? You can't take them out with rocket launchers, unfortunately. Cell can be, I wrote this down on my phone, Cell can literally be level 4 in like 5 minutes if you play against a really good Cell, or if they get really good RNG. His Solar Flare, for some reason, hits behind him. Like, if you're facing Cell from behind, it still hurts you for some reason. And from my understanding, Solar Flare should only work if you're in front of him. But, you know, it is what it is. Boo can pretty much always win, in my opinion, if he gets level 3. Unless Boo is really, really low health, Super Boo, in my opinion, before 8 Vegeta, was the best form of a Raider in the game. He literally has no flaws. All of his abilities are fantastic. All of them are great. He has no flaws. Like, I say no flaws, but I'm just going to say that one flaw he could have is the fact that his Ki Blast, the range of it isn't fantastic. But that's pretty much it, in my opinion. His stomach ability, if you absorb enough survivors to get your level 4, Boo will absorb all the remaining survivors into his stomach, and the only way to escape is to release Fat Boo. And if Super Boo gets the Fat Boo before the survivors do, then he can basically just camp, and then the survivors, if they don't have their dragon changes, they're pretty much shit out of luck, and they can't really do anything to defend themselves there. Assault Rain can literally wipe teams. I've talked about this a little bit on the Raider tier list. Of course, skilled survivors will have no problem really dodging this move. You can pretty much just use traversal active skills to dodge it if you're out in the open, but a safe way to avoid this ability is to be in a cave. So, with that being said, what makes Raiders weak? So, Raiders can be easily overwhelmed. Oops, let me get back to the gameplay. Yeah, so Raiders can be easily overwhelmed. Literally, it takes 2 survivors that know what they're doing to deal decent damage on a Raider. A good way to deal decent damage on a Raider, I'll tell you right now, is to get them in a corner or get them against a wall, or literally just in any scenario, just straight up melee combo them and have another your fellow survivor hit them with super attacks. You're gonna be dealing melee damage, and you're also gonna be dealing super attack damage. So that's just like a really good way to deal some damage. And even if you don't get the melee priority and you clash, your fellow survivor could still land a super attack or join in and be able to launch a melee combo on the Raider. So melee combos, or melee combat in general, is kind of funky. So I have this as a weakness for the Raiders, but this is also a weakness for the survivors as well. It's kind of just mashing the square button and kind of hoping you get priority. Typically, if you have a higher level than the Raider, you will get priority more times than not, and you'll be less likely to clash, I believe. But in the comments below, let me know if this is the case. I don't think I'm pulling that out of my butt. So there's basically no counterplay against Barrier and its combos. So what I mean about this is you guys have seen in my videos, but basically there is a skill called Energy Field, and I don't know if the developers realized what they did with this ability, but basically it's able to combo with other active skills. And the reason why this is really strong is because moves like Bike and Instant Transmissions are really, really strong on their own, but the thing is they can be interrupted. We want to know what Energy Field does. It allows those active skills not to be interrupted. And that's what makes Instant Transmission and Energy Field such a deadly and downright, in my opinion, unfair combo. Because Instant Transmission is legit a free escape. It allows you to teleport to any other remaining survivor on the map. And if you're teleporting to another survivor very far away from the raider, then you're pretty much home free. And you'll be able to chill out for a little bit. And before you know it, instant transmission will be back, and energy field will probably be back as well. So instant transmission does have a little bit of startup, but the thing is, energy field lasts the entire duration of instant transmission. So there is zero counterplay to this. So the raider literally just has to sit there and watch their prey just escape for free because they got lucky on the gacha. Do I use this ability? Do I use this combo? Yes, of course. Do I understand that it's overpowered? Yes, and I feel like that's not exactly a contradiction. Using the abilities and pointing out their flaws and their overpoweredness, I feel like you have to do that, guys. You have to do that. Just like having survivor bias, I feel like I'm a victim to this, but knowing what it's like on the other side, I feel like is very important, because at the end of the day, we just want this game to be fun, right? And of course, there's the combo with bike as well. Bike takes a second to start up. You got to spawn it, and then you can zip away. But energy field makes this very easy to use as well. So there's no defensive options besides knockbacks or area destruction. So what this means for raiders, if you guys don't know, is if you're being comboed, right? If you're being comboed or if you're being jumped as the raider, what can you do? You have two options, depending on what level you are. But most raiders have a sort of knockback ability or an evasive escape. Most of the raiders have a knockback, which is like Break Strike from Frieza, which will deal a little bit of damage and knock any survivors surrounding you back. Cell has After Image, which allows him to pretty much break a combo. Which is cool about this ability is that he's actually able to cancel it and then use Solar Flare after it and kind of stun survivors and land a super attack and whatnot. But typically level 1s do not have this ability. So this goes for Spopovich, this goes for Frieza, this goes for Larva Cell, and this goes for the Cybermen as well. So what does this mean? If you're being comboed or if you're being tag teamed by the survivors, you have no lines of defense. And if you are in the levels that I stated previously, you can also use area destruction to kind of, you can kind of just sit there and wait. Like you just sit there and wait until the transformations are about to expire. Or you can just wait the entire time and just wait for the animation to force the play when you need to destroy an area. And by that time, a majority of the transformations should hopefully be expired. But be mindful, there are skilled survivors that do have the tech where they can fly up to you, and as soon as you're finished destroying an area, they can launch a free super attack on you. So you do have to be mindful of that. But those are the only two defensive options that raiders really do have. So what else is weak about raiders? A sneeze, a simple sneeze, a touch, a peck, if you will, makes raiders drop Dragon Balls. So this means touching them with energy field. This means hitting them with a rocket, hitting them with Bancho Fan. Literally launching any attack on the raider will make them drop all of their Dragon Balls. Whereas for survivors, you actually need to go ahead and down them for them to drop their Dragon Balls. So moving right along, RNG with civilians can make or break games. I feel like this is especially true for Cell, who specializes in leveling up fast, where his kit, in my opinion, isn't exactly that strong. So if you're stuck in Form 2, which is pretty easily to manage as survivors, you're kind of screwed, right? You can easily lose sight of survivors. With the amount of abilities that survivors have, whether it's grapple, bike, instant transmission, floating device, all these fantastic abilities that survivors have, it's very easy to lose sight of survivors, and once you do, you're kind of screwed, right? And also the camera ain't exactly the best sometimes, so keeping that in mind as well. Going up against a full team means you basically have to play perfectly. So if you go up against a full team as a raider, you pretty much have to get good RNG, you can't make any mistakes, and you don't really want any survivors to get away from you, because these survivors will rush keys, they'll get all the Dragon Balls guaranteed, and you'll pretty much have a very bad time. And typically, a team of survivors will be using the meta abilities like Energy Field, Bike, and Instant Transmission. So 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have a really bad time unless you get good RNG there. Ki blasts are sometimes more effective than the super attacks for raiders. This is especially true with Frieza, but just something I feel like is a weak note, because sometimes some of the super attacks for the raiders are kind of like whatever, right? But I understand why not all of them can be as strong as some of the later ones. Raiders have their base kits, and that's it. There's no updates, and besides buffs and nerfs, things don't really change that much about Raiders. Alright, so let's move along to what makes Survivor strong. So I already went 20 minutes talking about Raiders, and we'll continue the video here. Actually, do I have enough video here? Let me play this match earlier. That way you guys got something to look at while we're talking here. Okay. And now it's not playing. So, what makes Survivors so strong? Super attacks can chain right after another if you time them right. In previous versions of the game, you could actually combo melee supers back to back to back, but they since got rid of that. Melee supers or any other super in the game are deadly. If you land a melee super on a Raider, if you follow that up with a ranged super attack, the damage you will deal is insane, and it's very easy for multiple survivors to do this. If literally one person lands either a melee combo on the Raider or a melee super. They have a wide variety of skills and abilities to choose from. I've already mentioned Energy Field, I already mentioned Bike, and I already mentioned Instant Transmission. They have the ability to have combos with Barrier. They will receive new abilities indefinitely. I think this is the thing that people don't realize about the difference between Raiders and Survivors. Survivors will always and constantly get new abilities. For Raiders, they have their base kits, and until they do an overhaul system with the Raiders, they will only have their base kits, unless they get buffs and nerfs. So keep that in mind as well, what makes Survivors strong. Their ability to hit and run and take Dragon Balls fairly easily. Take this with a grain of salt. I mean, sometimes when you need a rocket, sometimes you can never find one. But I'd say in most cases, it is fairly easy to take Dragon Balls away from the Raiders. This recording is freezing. Very strange. Anyways, access to radars, items, and extra supplies once Super Time Machine activates. So even if you're in a scenario where the Raider has an advantage, Trunks' supplies can be very clutch sometimes. Also, keep in mind the quality of the supplies fluctuate depending on what level the Raider is. So there are times when you might want to wait to start up the Super Time Machine too early, because if it is a very long game, then you might get crap supplies. And you know what? I'm gonna turn off the recording here. It's not it's just not even working. All right, so we're just gonna talk in the menu. They can land super attacks on the Raider after they destroy an area, which is very, very true. Depending on RNG, all keys and Dragon Balls can be found very quickly. And depending on what radars you get, if you get a gold radar and you get a key radar, then you can rush the keys and have the Super Time Machine activated very quickly. So those are all the strong points I have about Survivors. Kind of went through that a little fast just because I don't want this to be like a 40-minute long video. So what makes Survivors so weak? Randoms. Randoms make playing Survivor a struggle. You guys know what I'm talking about. The Survivors that just run into the Raider and feed, the Survivors that just hide in caves and do nothing, the Survivors during the defensive phase while the Super Time Machine is set up that do absolutely squats. Like, this game is so team-based, and I feel like people don't realize that. People that just play this game, I feel like their impression is that, you know, it's like most Dragon Ball games where you can 1v1 the bad guy, and that's just not the case in this game. It's a different type of game, and I feel like people need to understand that, and I think they also need to appreciate that this game is trying to do something different. Losing Dragon Balls and planting keys, oh yeah, so that's the worst thing, where like you have a random that's hoarding all the Dragon Balls, they don't want to give them to you, so you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna give it to them. They're better off having all of them than like us not even using them at all. You give it to them and then they lose them all, and then the Raider takes them. So that's another example of randoms feeding. Limited amount of supplies. So the reason why this is a weakness is because the Raiders can destroy areas, and depending on how lucky you are / unlucky you are, you might not find that many supplies in the areas that you're searching, or you might go to an area where other survivors already raided, right? You can barely fight Raiders alone. You kind of can. You definitely have an easier time depending on the Raider that you're fighting and the level advantage that you have. But like I said, it's more of a hit and run tactic. You're not really going to be like fighting the Raider for a very long time regardless. Certain skills are flat out useless. If we go ahead and look at some of the skills in the training area, I think it's easy to point out a number of these skills that are flat out like a garbage tier, right? So we have backup attack, which is fine. We have Till, which is absolutely dog doo-doo. We have Flying Nimbus, which is really bad. We have Wall Defense, which unfortunately isn't that great. We have Pod, which is an inferior version to Instant Transmission. We have Scouter, which is an item in a game, but it has a 90-second cooldown. Band items, why? I don't know. So, yeah, I don't really have to go through that many, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There's good skills, and 9 times out of 10, you don't have them because the gacha is being gacha, and you just have these poopy skills, and it's kind of tough. What else do we have here? No defense against camping raiders besides putting pressure on them. I already put that out there in terms of what strategies you can use. Little to no defense against Ki Blast spam. So you want to know the defense that you have against Ki Blast spam? Your own Ki Blast, and that's about it. And you're pretty much just sitting in a stalemate where he's blasting and you're blasting. It's pretty much just like a JoJo, and you guys are just like Ki Blasting each other until like whoever gets tired first, right? But typically it's going to be the survivors because they have a limited amount of a transformation, right? So there's certain Ki Blasts that are better taking out Raiders Ki Blasts than others. I could do a video on that in the future. Let me know in the comments below if there's interest in that. But let's continue on the survivor weaknesses. There's the fact that Senzu beans don't fully heal you. So the canon aspect to this, from what I've been explained, is because the barrier, like the physical barrier that protects humans, isn't like a part of them, if that makes any sense. That's like an extension, where that's like an extra hit, right? That's a protective blue barrier. So that's like why this, like the Senzu just heals you, like it heals your wounds, but it doesn't also give you like a barrier, if that makes any sense. But I still think it's BS. I think you should get a barrier, and honestly I think you should get a little bit of the invincibility frames, because I know we've all been there when you heroically save a fellow survivor with a Senzu, but then the Raider just pops them with a Ki Blast, and then it was like, well shit, what'd I do that for, right? So level 4s are fragile and need a team. I feel like a lot of people don't realize this. They'll get the level 4, summon Shenron, and then they'll run in with the level 4, get bodied, and then all hope is lost. You need a team. You need to have coordinated attacks. Even with the level 4, nothing changes there. You can die instantly when revived, and you can be easily tunneled. So with that being said, those are kind of my list of things of why the Raiders are strong, why the Raiders are weak, why the survivors are strong, and why the survivors are weak. And now we're going to look at your guys' comments and see what you guys think about the current state of the meta. All right, so we have Super Sun Zeratol, thank you for your comment. We have Frieza, followed by survivors, followed by other raiders. In most games, it feels like if the survivors team is competent, then that survivor team has to misplay in order to lose, and that no matter how well the raider plays, he'll still lose if the survivors are good and don't misplay. Frieza being the exception to this, who feels like he has to misplay in order to lose. A lot of this is just that it feels very hard for a raider to actually down a competent player within the first 5 minutes of the game if they have the right skills equipped. And because of this, it's not too hard for survivors to rush keys and for the super time machine to drop with all 7 survivors still alive, while the raider is still only level 2, where survivors typically have to misplay to lose from that position. I feel like this guy was kind of spitting. I don't really disagree with that. Frieza is definitely very strong. I don't know if I would say he's the strongest raider. I think he is very strong, but I think he does have the most going on. So honestly, you know what? I take that back. I guess Frieza at frame 1, I think he probably is the strongest, if not one of the strongest, right? He's definitely in that conversation for sure. SN Animation says I still win like 95% of my raider matches and lose like half of my survivor matches. So I think, again, this is very dependent on the teammates that you match up with and the raiders you go up against. And of course, it boils down to RNG as well. But I think that's what keeps the game fun, that some of the games are based on RNG. I understand that can be frustrating at times, but I think that does keep things spicy. Man, I don't know, apart from Cell, I think the game is pretty balanced. I'm not voting for anyone. Against randoms, the raider can clap, but against high levels or group survivors are more favored. So, yeah, no, I think overall, although I'll give my opinion on whether I think the game is survivor side or raider side at the end of the video, but I do think the game is in a fairly balanced state, all things considered. I'd say, thank you, Shadowstorm 5000, and also Crier as well, so Shadowstorms. I'd say it's survivor side in a coordinated team. With random survivor, I usually find myself having to play for the escape time machine due to being one of, if not the only one left alive, and I'm dying anyway about half the time. I feel like we've all been there at least once or twice. Thank you, Frieza 1500, for your comment. So I've changed my mind on some stuff. I played 2 games as Frieza. One where my shots wouldn't land, and another where every shot did land. I'm beginning to think a lot of problems are lagging matches and not OP survivors. I have experienced some lag in the game, but I don't really feel like it's that abundant to straight up say that is the reason why losses and wins occur. Hopped on the game not too long ago to do the daily rewards and won 3 matches as Survivor in a row with randoms, escaped the next match and won the next 2. TLDR, Survivor's been kicking ass. Yeah, Survivors are definitely in a very good state right now. Survivor side, if you're in a pre-made. Raider side, if you're going up against an uncoordinated team. I can agree with that. I can agree with that as well. Thank you, Papa Saint, and thank you, Sativa. Ella James says, as a team of survivors, I almost always lose against Vegeta Raiders. Interesting. I think it depends on the skill of the Raider. That definitely comes into play. I started to win most Raider games I play because I focus on getting the Dragon Ball Radar. This is a very important thing, and that also is a plus to Raiders that I feel like a lot of people don't realize. You can get radars, and that can be beneficial in finding survivors, finding Dragon Balls, and finding civilians. Meme Machine says, Raiders sided on the sheer premise that we need energy field and bike in the first place to have any opportunity to escape tunneling. We need more stealth options that let us make clean getaways. So this is an argument that I've heard from a lot of you saying that, yes, we use energy field, yes, we use bike, and yes, we use instant transmission because what other options do we have? And I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. I think this is an issue with breakers. Where they need to give survivors more options, otherwise they're just going to use the strongest options in the game. So until we get a variety of different abilities that are good, people are going to be using the same things. But at the same time, I feel like we can admit that energy field in combination with bike and instant transmission is very strong, right? So I feel like there is a factor of admitting that. Raiders, kind trust. Thank you for your comment. Raiders have a higher win rate, so it's objectively Raider-sided. I don't see many arguments against this. Keep in mind, a lot of people are solo players, and it's way more common escaping the escape time machine than winning, especially for those who have been unlucky enough to get not get any new good abilities thus the entire season. Me. So I do think there are abilities that you can use in the game, even if you don't have energy field or instant transmission. Everybody has access to bike. Every single person has access to bike. All you have to do is grind for the enough spirit or just equip Bulma. Just equip Bulma and you have access to the ability by not even mastering it and just get the passive. The passive is fairly common to get, but the bike is still okay on its own, even though it's not as good, right? I think the game is definitely Survivor side, especially considering the fact that survivors get new abilities and super attacks constantly. Yeah, thank you, Joy Rider. I definitely agree with that. Geno X Flame says, at higher level of play, the survivors win for the average guy. Not being a whale or getting into the game, it's heavily Raider based. As it should be, the whole design of asymmetrical games is that a coordinated group of 7 should, yeah, honestly, I definitely concur. BackBCO23 says, from my experience, I would say we're in a survivor-dominated meta. However, bearing in mind that results vary wildly depending on the experience of the survivor/raider and the tools they have available to them. The disparity isn't that vast. Frieza and Vegeta have the best 2 raiders in the game, are the best 2 raiders in the game, period. But the issue is that there's no counterplay to the best tools that survivors have. I absolutely agree with this. Energy Field and Bulma's Bike. Not a single game I played since the end of Season 1 where not both these skills were being used. Yeah, I think it's very uncommon to find that the case, right? Ninja Bros says, definitely Survivor side, like some of the coordination as well as the teamwork made to literally and completely destroy a Raider, even possibly at level 3, is insane to say the least. Plus, I think the Dragon Ball is being buffed to not just be destroyed and scattered all over the map was definitely necessary as of now. I'll admit, I kind of did like back in the day where Raiders could counter a summon by destroying an area, then all the Dragon Balls would be scattered. Now what takes place is when you destroy an area where a summoning is taking place, the survivor can keep the balls and move to another area and continue their summon. The reason why I don't like this is because it actually made survivors have to be careful about the summon and choose smartly and wisely when to use it. And it also made sense to summon in Area X, because Area X can't be destroyed, so if you summon in Area X, the Raider has no counter to that. But it is risky because it's in the middle of the map, right? So I kind of did like that cat and mouse style of gameplay there, but they did what they did. Damn, people really feel like I felt like the game is pretty balanced right now, besides the instant transmission and energy field, free getaway. Shit is nasty. Yeah, it's definitely pretty nasty. Thank you, Daily Dose of Jordan, for your comments. The game needs an overhaul on the basic gameplay. A killer stun after a hit. A lock-on system for killers. For precise directional control on dodging. Fair enough. Thank you, Trev. Michael C says, everyone who is saying it's Survivor side against a Discord pre-made 7, sure. But if you're talking about the average game, if you're losing to 7 uncoordinated survivors, that's not unbalanced. That's a skill issue. Thank you, Michael. Arkin, Noku. Is this talking about... Okay, he's just saying he lost the Raider game. Shouts to Noku, by the way. Shouts to Noku. Dr. Butcher TV says, I solo queue exclusively and my teams are still beating the Raiders 90% of the time, with them rarely getting out of level 2 unless it's Frieza or Vegeta. They've made everything more difficult for the Raider, and the latest crop of abilities are just too good, especially with the Raiders still being stuck with the base stuff they launched with. I agree. They need to update the Raiders to give them more options to equip, just like they are for Survivors. I haven't lost a Raider match since my first 2 games of Raider. Damn, what a flex, Walter. What a flex. Robert Borgo says, the meta is definitely Survivor favored. However, I don't think we need more than a few tweaks to Survivor skills. I agree. I don't think they need to run certain abilities into the ground like Energy Field, Bike, and Instant Transmission. Coordinated team with several people running Energy Barrier, Instant Transmission / Spike will dominate any Raider 9 out of 10 times. When I play Raider against a team of under level 100 survivors, I win 75% of the time. Sorry, Dragon Ball fans can't read. The games, everyone 100 plus running meta skills and coordinate, I get messed up. Yeah, for sure. Marcus Maximum here says, Raiders getting a buff or a new skill is probably best. With Survivors getting new skills every 2 weeks or so, it could definitely help with balancing. For sure, I agree, Marcus. Kane just straight up says balanced. Very based. Numa says, I feel it's definitely Survivor side since a lot of high-level survivors will just use the obvious meta active skills and jump the Raider when possible. I feel like Vegeta, maybe Frieza are the only Raiders where it isn't completely one-sided. I would like to get to all the comments here. I'll take one from the end. Definitely the Survivor's favorite, but still win most of my games is Raider. Yeah, so it seems like the consensus here is that people are saying that the game is Survivor side, but I don't want this video to be an hour. So in my opinion, I do think the game is Survivor sided. Now, before people raise their pitchforks and start lighting fires, I want you to realize what some of the comments actually listed, saying that Raiders have their base kits. They don't get additional adjustments besides buffs and nerfs. They don't get additional moves, where Survivors are always getting new Transpheres. They're always getting new abilities. And with that, the Raiders are always going to be left behind. So they kind of need to change the system here, or they're going to have to adjust certain abilities. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this state of the meta video. I do think the game is in a fairly balanced state, all things considered. Like, you can't just like put the controller down as Survivor and win. Like, you do actually have to play, you do have to be tactical, and you do have to use teamwork, right? And it's the same thing with Raiders. Like, Raiders can't just put the controller down and win. I do think the game is fairly balanced, but I do think the Survivors have a slight edge. But of course, let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and let me know why, right? I think that's the big thing. That a lot of people just say Raiders OP, Survivors OP, but like state why, right? And with that being said, if you guys like the video, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe for more Dragon Ball The Breakers discussions, updates, showcases, funny moments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Hopefully it won't be as long, but I hope you guys were able to enjoy, I don't know, a movie or a snack watching this video. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.